Hi, this is RaviShankar. In today's class, in today's session, I'll walk you through Introduction to SharePoint Development. Introduction to SharePoint Development, getting started with all the platform dependencies. So we'll get a chance to see how to set up development environment, what is the IDE, and which IDE is compatible with the relevant SharePoint version. Next, we'll get a chance to go through all the APIs, application, programmable interfaces, nothing but your classes that you need to use with respect to SharePoint. We will learn different object models in SharePoint. Object models in SharePoint. First, let us see how to set up development environment. So what is the development environment? Here, how do you write your code? What is the tool that you need to use to write your code for SharePoint? And what are your language preferences? What is your framework? So to go through all these, first of all, we need to understand, so where is this word SharePoint, or where is this language coming from? So SharePoint is not a new technology. It is not a replaced technology. SharePoint is built on top of .NET. SharePoint is built on top of .NET. So whatever .NET inherits, SharePoint inherits the same, including the development environment with respect to languages. If we are using VB.NET, we can still continue VB.NET in SharePoint. If you run C#.NET, we can still run your C#.NET. But in .NET, we have different kinds of applications like console, Windows, class library, ASP.NET Web Project, MVC, Crystal reports. But in SharePoint, we have different kinds of concepts. Otherwise, both are same. Okay, we still continue to use our C#.NET, ASP.NET technologies, C#.NET language, ASP.NET technology. So we'll continue the same. If you are considering SharePoint 2010 or 2013, so the IDE we can use the IDE as the IDE Integrated Development Environment. Is nothing but is your Visual Studio 2012 or 2013 or 2015. We recommend you to choose either Visual Studio 2013 or 2015. You can continue with 2012 as well, but the limitation is you need to, if you are using SharePoint 2013 for development, you need to download the add-ins explicitly, install it, then start creating projects. But whereas if you continue with Visual Studio 2013 or 2015, all the SharePoint templates are packaged by default. Okay, so let me show you on the screen what do you mean by this. So we have Visual Studio installed here. We have Visual Studio 2012. Now when I launch and my Visual Studio, we start creating projects from the file menu, new project, then select the language, whether you want to continue Visual Basic C#. Generally we prefer C#. Now this component you don't find it by default. So we have to download this, then only we can see all the SharePoint templates, whether it's a solution or it's an app. Okay, but for now the takeaway for us is, if we choose Visual Studio 2012, this Office/SharePoint component is not available by default. Then how can we get it? You have to download SharePoint 2013 add-ins for Visual Studio 2012. This will get you a file called as vsewss.exe file, which you have to run. Then all the templates are available by default. Okay. So if you can follow this, so there is exe which we have to run. If you are choosing Visual Studio 2012, download SharePoint 2013 add-ins for Visual Studio 2012, then all the templates, all the project templates are available. Project templates are available. But whereas if we choose Visual Studio 2013 or 2015, all the SharePoint templates are available by default. You also have an additional advantage. You have latest features, lot of improvements. For example, with respect to SharePoint apps, in Visual Studio 2012 we find 3 types of apps: SharePoint hosted, auto hosted, provider hosted. But if we continue with 2013-2015, as auto hosted app is deprecated, you find only 2 options. Now you will find SharePoint hosted and provider hosted. There is no auto hosted. So that is the reason we request you to choose only Visual Studio 2013 or 2015. So Office in the form of Office/SharePoint, where you find all the templates. Either you have the ability to select apps or you can select SharePoint solutions. We'll come across all this concept, but your takeaway is, okay, we can develop 2 types of things: solutions or apps using Visual Studio. And coming to the development environment, you need to have SharePoint installed. Otherwise, you cannot directly work with a server-side object model. Okay, so you should be on the SharePoint server. For you to have a SharePoint server, you need to meet all the prerequisites. Make sure that you have a compatible environment, compatible environment or platform. Okay, SharePoint can be installed only on a server operating system. SharePoint supports x64-bit platform. SharePoint cannot be run on 32-bit machines or 32-bit applications. Okay, so if you can consider all the prerequisites, you can continue with your SharePoint development. Okay, so I'm assuming that we are clear with the development environment. The IDE that we use is Visual Studio 2012, 2013 or 2015. Better go with the 2013 and 2015, where you find all the SharePoint templates by default. Okay. Moving on to the next thing, we will see what are the APIs that we have. APIs are nothing but application programmable interfaces. It's a class, again it's a class. So why do we need to learn all these classes? These are important, this plays an important role in your development. If you are not sure on which class to use to interact with the SharePoint sites, then it's tough for you to create an object and call through all the methods. So we need to understand what are the APIs, which API that you need to use. So to understand the APIs, first of all, what are the scopes, that what is the pattern that we follow, scopes in SharePoint. If you can understand the scope, and if you have a good knowledge on the APIs, as a developer your job will be easy. So simple thing, if classes are more, development will be easy. So scopes in SharePoint, we have the first one as form, second one as web application, third one as site collection, fourth one subsite, fifth one library, list, etc., etc., sixth one document or column, etc., etc. So now, if for instance, if I have to list out the classes, there are plenty of classes, it's tough for us to provide you all the classes, but overall if I need to write a class for these scopes, the equivalent class for form is SP form, for web application is SP web application, site collection SP site, subsite SP web, for library or list you can use either SP document library collection or SP list or SP library. Okay, for document or column you have SP column, SP, plenty of other APIs. And one more important API that we keep on using, SP context, SP query, SP list item collection, so on. You have plenty of other classes. Okay, so how equipped we need to be with these classes? The more classes that you know, the more ease will be your development. Okay, so if you can see there are plenty SP form, SP web application, list, query, SP query classes. We use this to continue in our development. Okay. Moving on to the object models. What are the object models that we have in SharePoint? We have different object models in SharePoint. This could be one of those interview questions. So we have typical 4 types of object models. One is .NET server side object model, the other one is .NET client side object model, the other one is JavaScript or jQuery object model, and then you have web services, WCF or REST or APIs. Now what is the reason for us to learn? So whenever you work on a project, you should be able to understand which object model that you need to choose based on the requirement, whether I can implement this with a client side object model, whether I can implement using client side scripting, whether I can go for a web services or WCF. So you need to be able to assess, because we might have plenty of limitations. If your client doesn't want to give you access to any of their environments, they doesn't want to purchase any Visual Studio licenses, then how do we proceed with our development? So Microsoft has come up with 4 object models. First one is your .NET server side object model. Then the next one is .NET client side object model. Then we have typical JSON. Then we have web services. WCF or REST or anything. So if we can quickly call it, we can call it as a song. CSOM, JavaScript object model, JSON, web services. Now how the same class behaves in different object models? When do I need to go for this particular object model? For example, if you are choosing .NET server side object model, that means we are assuming that you have a SharePoint machine, machine dedicated to SharePoint, where SharePoint server is installed with all the prerequisites. Okay, so here you have SharePoint installed, SP is installed, and along with all the other components. Let me also consider Visual Studio. Okay, now if I need to interact with SharePoint APIs, SharePoint classes, if we need to communicate with SharePoint classes, then we can use the keyword for C#.NET using Microsoft.SharePoint. So I'm not writing the full, I'm just writing the abbreviation like MS. It should be Microsoft.SharePoint. It's not MS.sp. Let me correct it. It would be Microsoft.SharePoint due to the time space constraint. Okay, Microsoft using Microsoft.SharePoint. So where can I get this assembly? Okay, these assemblies are located in the on the SharePoint server in the ISAP folder. So if you are choosing SharePoint 2010, it will automatically create a 14 hive folder, 14 hive. If you are choosing 2013, it will create a 15 hive in the operating system program files. So these DLLs can be picked from this location. So the assembly can be assembly of namespace. Generally, it's a namespace. Okay, are located. The DLLs are located. The SharePoint DLLs. SharePoint DLLs are located at. You need to search on the SharePoint server, not on the local machine where you don't have SharePoint. So the moment you install SharePoint, all the DLLs are stored located under OS drive. Let's assume C drive, program files, common files, Microsoft shared, web server extensions, as we are using 2013, you will see web server extensions 15 hive. Within that, you will find a folder called as ISAP, Internet Services Application Programmable Interfaces. Here you should be able to locate all the SharePoint DLLs. The base DLL that we need to use for development is Microsoft.SharePoint. This is the minimum, bare minimum DLL. I can take you to that particular path. C drive, program files, common files, Microsoft shared, web server extensions 15 hive. Here we will find a folder called as ISAP. All the DLLs which are used for development should be listed here. Let's search for Microsoft.SharePoint. Microsoft.SharePoint. This is our base DLL. Without that, we cannot proceed with any development. You can see we have different kinds of DLLs. Microsoft.SharePoint, .client.dll, client.dll, Microsoft.SharePoint.linkview. We have plenty of other DLLs, linkview. Okay. All these DLLs are helpful for the development. Okay. Then you have to use the keyword using, as we opt C#.NET as the language, using Microsoft.SharePoint. Then if I have to call a simple class, for example SP site. So this is how I use SP site class name object equal to new class. SP site object equals to new SP site by passing your parameter. This expects an argument, this expects a parameter, you can input that, but this is how you create an object for your SP site. So the class, the API would be SP site. And we also have another class, how it behaves, SP context. So the idea here, I want to show how a class behaves in different object models. Okay, this is coming towards the SOM. Now, how it works with CSOM. In CSOM, we assume that client-side object model, we don't have SharePoint installed, no SP, but we still have Visual Studio installed on our Windows XP or 7 or any 8.1, 10, any of your client operating system. But if your business demands you to interact with SharePoint, work with SharePoint, then you can still continue your development with SharePoint, but you have to use using Microsoft.SharePoint.client. This will be your assembly or namespace. Then using that, now if you want to call SP site class, no. Then what is the way? You have a equivalent API for that site. Now if I want to call SP context, you have a equivalent class called as client context, so on. So the classes will be different. Okay, so the classes will be different. You can ask one thing, can't we using Microsoft.SharePoint? Yes, we can continue with Microsoft.SharePoint, but what if you want to directly debug or communicate with the site, SharePoint site which is available on SharePoint server? No, it doesn't work. Okay. Then moving on to the JavaScript object model. JavaScript object model, so it's purely client-side scripting. That means you don't have Visual Studio, you don't have SharePoint server, you are left out only with the Notepad. In a Notepad, how do we do a reference for a JavaScript or a jQuery? First of all, you need to add the tag prefix like script type equals to text or language and source of your .js file, whether it's a jQuery file or any supporting like namespace. Close the script tag. Then you can start your script if it is a JavaScript. Now you want to write your jQuery, all this kind of stuff, then you can write in a $document.ready function. It acts like a page load. Okay, it renders it calls this particular file on the page load. Okay, and then we have one more object model called as web services. Okay, so coming to the classes. Coming to the class, how can I use the SP site class in JavaScript object model? So, SP site can be used as sp.site operation, whatever. Then client context sp.client context. So end of the day, it's a .js file. It's a .js file. sp.js. We have few predefined JavaScript like sp.runtime JS files, which will support for all the JavaScript framework libraries. Moving on to the other object model, web services. or WCF or REST or SOAP. Okay. So when do we for these object models, if there is a platform independent or language, you are working on some integrations. If you are working on some integrations like .NET with SharePoint, SAP with SharePoint, Oracle with SharePoint, then we go for these web services which are exposed over the web, where you need to call all the web methods. For example, if you have to use web services, then how do we add a service reference? It could be http://server name where you have SharePoint /_vti_bin. For example, if I am calling sp list, then I have a class, I have a web method, web service called as list.asmx with the associated discovery and WSDL files, where you can get all the web methods. List.asmx, anything that ends with asmx is your web service. The equivalent WCF service, yes, Windows Communication Foundation, one of your .NET framework. http://server name _vti_bin/list data.svc. So anything which ends with svc is your WCF service. And we have enhancement in 2013, you can also use _vti_bin with _API. Okay, you can also use that. Now when to go for these object models? Okay, so if there is a requirement for you to directly interact with SharePoint, directly communicate with SharePoint and Visual Studio installed, go for server-side object model. No, if we are not authorized to work on the SharePoint server, we have some limitations due to hardware compatible, something like that. But still, if your business demands, then you can go for a client-side object model. Okay, you can directly interact. Performance will be a little high. In JavaScript object model, no, I want to do only front-end development, nothing related to a server-side code, but it's all client-side scripting in the form of JavaScript, HTML and jQuery. Then you can go for this JavaScript object models. If you are working on some integrations, then we go for web services or WCF. This way we can call all the methods over the web irrespective of your development platform. These are very crucial, this plays very crucial. With this, we have completed the setting up development environment, APIs in SharePoint, different object models. Let's move on to the next topic. We'll see how to get started with the SharePoint development by developing a example. In SharePoint, we can use solutions. Let me develop a simple solution. The scenario, developing a basic visual web part. So as part of the exercise, we'll see how to develop a basic visual web part by calling the classes. This way you'll get a chance to see how the APIs are called in using your Visual Studio. First of all, what is this visual web part? In SharePoint, this is a fundamental topic. Without this, we can't proceed with any of the project. So it's a web part is a reusable component. It's a reusable component rendered on a page to achieve some specific task, It's a reusable component. It is a reusable component. Rendered on a page to achieve a task. Okay. Let me show you one of the site how a web part looks like. for that, let me create a site collection. So that we can have one kicked off. SPDev let me input the details. We are trying to create a a platform, a site for us to develop something on this particular site.